Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, and welcome back to Soul Archaeology. We are building into a pretty intense week. I'm actually releasing this on Sunday rather than Monday because I want to provide you the opportunity to tune into the energy of this week before the full moon in Scorpio on Monday, happening at 9:56 a.m. on May 12th, which is a Monday, here in the US. And if you've been feeling the intensity, this prickly, sharp, deep, penetrating energy that's been building over the last few days, you are right on point. Mercury entered Taurus on May 10th and slowly began to build a square with Pluto. And this aspect exacts on May 12th, right after the full moon in Scorpio. So this pressure has been building within our psychological space, has been building within our words, our communication, our relationships. Wherever you have the fixed signs in your chart, you're going to feel this intensity. Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, and Leo. Now, because Mercury moving into Taurus means that it's squaring both Mars and Leo and Pluto and Aquarius. And you'll remember back in April, we had that final Mars and Pluto opposition of that series of 3 that's been happening since November of 2024. So with Mercury aspecting both Pluto and Mars, it's going to bring us back to those themes. So I'm just kind of, jumping right into the energy, but I do want to just take a moment to thank each and every one of you who took the time to message me about the 100th episode, who rated, reviewed the podcast, who sent messages, screenshots. Thank you all so much. It truly means the world. And I wish I could just choose everyone as a winner because it is, that's just how much I appreciate all of you. I'm just so deeply grateful for the support. And I will be sharing the winner of the giveaway at the end of the episode. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And also, I didn't mention this before, but I feel like this podcast is going through its own up-leveling of sorts. And as we know, when there's an up-leveling that happens, there is this squeeze, at the end before you kind of cross into that threshold. And I've been feeling this intensity build around Soul Archaeology over the last probably 6 months. I host this podcast on Spotify for podcasters. And when I first began, it was Anchor FM. And so back in 2020, when my friend Jess and I started our podcast, we used Anchor. And then it was bought by Spotify, which has been fine. And I really haven't had many issues besides them deleting some content just through little glitches and stuff. But I recently got a message from them actually back in March when we were in full-on eclipse season, which this is very eclipsy, but they were challenging the music that I use for this podcast. And it's something that I licensed back in 2023 when we started it. And I did have to go back and rework some of the licensing, but I keep getting messages from Spotify for podcasters, this platform that I use, that I need to review the licensing for the song that I use in the intro. And it just keeps happening, and they keep threatening to take the episode down. And it's all AI driven. I'm not actually working with people until I go in and sort of remedy it with people. Anyway, lots to say about this, but regardless, it brought so much up for me around rules and regulations, and it felt like this real opportunity for me to step into more ownership and self-responsibility and maturation around this podcast and what we're really doing and how I want to move forward with it. And I feel like we always have these reckonings before we're moving into the next chapter. And I'm sharing this because I think that sometimes when we feel like things are falling apart, or we're being challenged, or we're being, put through the meat grinder, for a lack of better terms, we can oftentimes collapse under that. And that collapse can drop us into victimhood. It can drop us into, avoiding the real medicine that can be held in the challenges and in the spaces where we're being asked to look at something or go into a space that's uncomfortable. And there are parts of me that felt that way. It was like, oh, I'm going to lose all of my content, all of the 90 episodes, and all of the, I'll have to go back and record with a new song or whatever it was, because it wasn't accepting my licensure. Regardless, it is fine now. I should mention that, but it just felt very timely. And I'm also having some issues with Spotify as well, with the counts of plays and listens. And so, one, it can be an opportunity for me to shift to another platform, but also it's just an opportunity for me to really reckon with my desire for this podcast and to perhaps invest in its maturation and up-leveling as well. And it's been really beautiful to see this process of me really looking at how much I love doing this and connecting with all of you, recording this podcast and sharing it. And it's really sharpened my focus. And so, yes, there were those moments of collapse where I was like, why is this happening? I don't even use any sponsorships or anything like that. But then that higher voice, my higher self, could sort of step in and say, oh, wait, you know what this is. This is an up-leveling. This is an upgrade. So let's meet it. And I don't always share a lot of personal pieces on this podcast because I like to really get into the energetics, but I've had a few people recently saying that when I share personal pieces, it's actually really helpful for them. So I wanted to share this little nugget as we were approaching 100 episodes, this nugget of wisdom that came in that was really quite challenging, and to see my response to it, like how activating it was actually for me, but how I could meet it in a new way was healing. I should also mention I'm in my Saturn square, so this is the type of energy that is pushing me to mature, to grow, to expand, evolve, to show up fully for what I truly desire. And by the way, if you also have your Saturn in Sagittarius, you might be feeling similar things because you're also in your Saturn square. But this week, we're not talking about Saturn. We're talking about Scorpio and Pluto and Mars and Mercury. We're talking about death and rebirth, transformation, alchemy. This week is about power dynamics, power struggles, attachment, intensity. It's about transformation. Where are we gripping to the old? Where are we trying to control or contort? Where are we subtly manipulating our experiences? And where are we afraid to surrender? This is a week of deep psychological transformation. It's going to reveal to us how we think and feel that needs to transform. Like I said earlier, you might be feeling the intensity of this Mercury Pluto square building. You might be feeling the building of the full moon in Scorpio as we move into it. It's most intense the evening before. So the evening of May 11th, which is Mother's Day, which is also why I want to release this episode on Sunday. But we know that alchemy requires heat and pressure. And change and transformation can be fast and quick, which is often the case with Uranus when Uranus is involved, or it can be slow and subtle. It can also be layered. We can have fast transformation woven into more slow, deep, penetrating transformation. We can have many transformations all at once, woven and layered together. But as we move into this full moon in Scorpio at 9:56 a.m. Pacific at 22 degrees of Scorpio, the moon, in one of the deepest, most penetrating alchemical signs in the zodiac, is fully illuminated by the sun, which is paired with Uranus this week. And Scorpio is the sign of the alchemist, the shaman. After we move through the 7th house and that Venusian journey through Libra, finding pleasure in relating and mingling, exploring and examining relating, we dive into the depths of Scorpio, the 8th house. We enter the subconscious. We enter what's beneath our desire to relate. What is it like to fully merge and transcend boundaries? I always say that Scorpio is like the honeymoon phase wearing off, when we start to see the subtle surfacing of the other person's patterns. It's real. Scorpio's real. It's death and rebirth, transformation and change. It's fixed water. It's about surrendering to the inevitable death that must be in place before we can birth something new. The highest expression of Scorpio is the phoenix. It's the alchemist, transforming again and again, turning lead to gold. Scorpio is about the transformation of the ego. It dissolves self to find self. Transmutation through being present with and embracing the fire, the heat, the pressure, the difficulty. It is the conscious warrior that uses its subconscious material to transform rather than avoiding or protecting it. In its highest expression, Scorpio is detached. In its lowest expression, it is so attached that it can't let go, that it seeks to manipulate and control the other or the self, the identity, the ego. Scorpio shows us that we must face death to transform the ego. Scorpio shows us our power. And not our physical power like Aries, but our deep, penetrating, psychological power. When the moon is in Scorpio, our internal landscape becomes more intensified. We're not simply experiencing feelings. We're moving beyond them and into the depths of our subconscious, into the roots of the feelings and experiences. Everything gets magnified during a full moon in Scorpio. And as we know, a full moon is when the sun and the moon are opposite, and the sun fully illuminates the moon, which means our internal landscape, our emotional landscape, our psyche, our subconscious is illuminated. It's a time when we can see what's hidden within our subconscious, our basement, all of the boxes that we like to keep sort of closed and tucked away. It's always a time of reckoning, revealing. Much can be revealed during a full moon phase because the internal landscape is fully illuminated. We can see more. We can feel more. But it can be very confronting as well. I feel that during a full moon in Scorpio, especially because we have this interaction between Mercury and Pluto as well, layered on top of it, and Uranus, this is a time that things can feel agitating or sharp. When things from the past that we thought we were maybe over or complete with begin to surface again, begin to sort of poke us and invite us to respond differently. And I've mentioned before that we are in a time of some stabilization. We've had the Piscean energy for the first part of the year. We've had a lot of planets retrograde and in their shadow. Taurus season is a stabilization, but the energy begins to pick up more and more through the summer. Saturn enters Aries at the end of this month. Jupiter enters Cancer. And Uranus, which has been in Taurus since 2018, enters Gemini in July. And Uranus has been, like I said, it's been moving through Taurus since 2018. And Uranus is the planet of innovation, change, transformation. It seeks to innovate and evolve and upgrade whatever it's touching. It's disruptive in that it oftentimes brings fast, quick change. So with a planet like Uranus in a fixed earth sign like Taurus, it can be destabilizing. It's meant to be. Think of how much has changed for you personally and collectively since 2018. I sometimes feel like Uranus has been this jackhammer, just going to town on the spaces within our internal and collective systems that are concrete, that are fixed, that we never thought would change. We never thought to question. But it's helpful in that it's always pushing us to innovate, to expand, to grow, to evolve. I've mentioned this before, that Pluto is sort of this outer theme, asking for us to change our systems, change our ways, evolve as a species. Well, Uranus is sort of the vehicle for that change. Uranus changes signs more often than Pluto does. And it's the how. How do we do it? How do we make these changes that we know we need to make? So on a personal level, when Uranus is involved, it asks us, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do with that uncomfortable feeling? Are we going to shut down, retreat, go inward, close off, which can often be the shadow of Scorpio? Or are we going to open to it? Are we going to stay and remain curious? Are we going to meet it with courage and wisdom and the highest expression of our power, life force? Are we going to default to the shadow, to our maybe subtly manipulative or reactive or wounded parts? Or can we meet the call for change with courage? You might still be feeling like your life is sort of a pile of these bits of concrete, these pieces that Uranus has been excavating. How can you meet that change? The uncertainty, the unknown, with more courage, with all of the wisdom that you've gained through the last 7 years of deep, deep, deep transformation. Uranus has been a big part of every single full moon in Scorpio since 2018. Sometimes the orb of the opposition has been really wide. It's maybe not, it felt as intense, but then we have moons where there's a direct opposition or one that's 4 degrees away, like this full moon in Scorpio. But this is the last full moon in Scorpio that will be opposed by Uranus, probably in our lifetime, unless you are a baby and you're listening to this, because Uranus is getting ready to shift into Gemini in July. So this is a deep alchemical process. This is such a powerful opportunity to meet the change that's being asked of us with courage, with clarity, with curiosity. It's excavating what we thought was secure and rooted within our lives. We also have Pluto that's been retrograde in Aquarius since May 4th. That's the ruler of Scorpio. With Pluto in its own underworld, this is a very deep and penetrating full moon. Full moons are also a time of release, letting go, surrender. Like I said earlier, Scorpio governs power, control, attachment, intimacy. It's related to the 8th house. And this moon in particular can really highlight issues that we hold around boundaries, control, the exchange of power dynamics in relationships. It will ask for us to confront the parts of ourselves we typically keep hidden, our shadow. It's an opportunity to notice the psychic downloads we're getting. Scorpio is such an intuitive sign. It's deeply psychic. So we get to sense and feel and touch what's beyond the physical. We get to explore our intimacy not only with others, but with the world, with what's beyond. It's also going to surface any of the emotional layers or patterns that we need to confront as we move into this next chapter. And specifically in relationships, where do we need to move beyond the veils of disconnection, any fears of intimacy, any layers of unhealthy or unsupportive attachment to others? Because the 8th house also connects with money and resources. Where are we afraid of being in our full and complete power around self-resourcing or shared resources? This moon can reveal deep truths with Uranus at play, with Mercury at play. It's a time to expect the unexpected, sudden revelations, breakthroughs, or disruptions or openings that can really shift or change your perspective. Because Taurus rules values and resources, it rules the material plane. Whatever we're gripping to in that realm, Uranus has had us revisit and look at where we need to let go of the old ways. And with having this last full moon with Uranus involved, it will be surfacing the material that requires our emotional attunement and processing along the axis of relationship, values, resources, safety and security. Where do we grip to what's safe? As we know, our subconscious is a survival system. We grip to what's familiar, even if it's not serving, simply because it's safe in its certainty. Scorpio pushes us to evolve past those familiar walls and thresholds. And wherever you have the fixed signs in your chart, Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo, you're going to be pushed out of your comfort zone with this moon. And with Uranus's ingress into Gemini this summer as well, as it finishes up its 7-year journey through Taurus. So in a way, this full moon really illuminates where we still remain tied or tethered to outdated systems, beliefs, values, ways of relating to others, ways of relating to money. It's going to ask for us to liberate ourselves, to break free from those walls of confinement and familiarity, and to create new ways of rooting, new ways of relating, new ways of creating abundance and financial security. When Uranus moves into Gemini, which we'll talk a lot about, probably in June when it starts to complete its journey through Taurus, and then early next year when it enters Gemini for its next 7-year transit. But as we begin to feel the push of the last degrees of Uranus and Taurus, we're starting to see how it will become a vehicle for this transformative phase we're in as a species. We know we're breaking down these hierarchical structures. We know we're creating new systems. We're being forced to reckon with our attachment to the way things have been. Wherever that is in your life that you're feeling this push of Uranus and Taurus, wherever Taurus lands in your chart. Relationships, safety, security, attachments to what has been, to what's familiar, but maybe no longer serving. And you'll be asked to give that up over the next few months. This full moon in Scorpio is shining a light on those spaces, or actually it's reflecting back our internal attachment and the subconscious beliefs and patterns that keep us in these dynamics with money, in relationships, connected to our own safety and security that are outdated. And it's such a powerful force, the alchemy of this moon, to transmute, to transform, to dissolve the old ways. And we need the courage and the power of Scorpio, that phoenix or the alchemist, to enter into that process of transmutation, to fully and completely surrender what has been in order to birth what will be. So this week starts off right away with this full moon in Scorpio. Confronting, revealing, pushy. And then we move into a Sun and Uranus conjunction on the 17th, which will once again reveal where we've remained fixed, where we're quote unquote stuck, where we're afraid to let go, specifically in the area where Taurus lands in your chart. We're experiencing this pressure on a fixed T-square. Mercury, an inner planet, pulling up and revealing through our psyche where we're stuck, where we're fixed, where our power or our ego or our pride gets in the way of the true potent transformation that we're being invited into at this time. To revisit our own internal security system, where we root and ground into things, even if they're not fully supportive, because it's what we've known. Or how we relate to our own bodies, our own nervous systems, how we create internal security. When I think of Taurus season, I think of the earth, the mother, and our relationship with that grounding, rooting force of belonging and safety. Letting it be a resource, letting yourself be held in that space so that you can lean into this transformation. I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I think in so many ways, healing work really is creating the conditions for all of our bodies to meet and be with the unprocessed trauma of the past. And in order to create the conditions for the body and the psyche to meet these experiences, we need resourcing. And this is what Taurus is about. For me, Taurus is about resources and, of course, values, but rootedness, security. So I invite you to explore, where are your roots? What are they rooted into? What is your relationship with your internal security? And then your external security. What holds you? Is it a belief in God? Is it a belief in the earth? Is it a belief in an external force? Or do you feel like it all falls on your shoulders? With Mercury then moving into a square with Mars at the end of the week on the 17th, begins the week squaring Pluto. And then by the end of the week, Mercury squaring Mars. So we're in this pocket held by the two forces of power. We've had, like I said before, this Mars and Pluto opposition since November, pushing and pulling, forcing us to look at where we fall into unsupportive power dynamics, in our personal lives and collectively, and where we're afraid of anchoring into our true power, our higher power. Mercury is going to be squaring both of these entities and asking for us to get real, to get clear, to confront our own participation in the power dynamics, and to use the alchemical power of Scorpio to move beyond it. What has been your relationship with power? Where do you play into power dynamics within your life? Even if it's subtle, it usually is very subtle. It's usually very, even sort of covert. But I can guarantee you, we all, to some degree, participate in some sort of unhealthy or unsupportive power dynamic within our lives, in our relationship to self, and our relationship to others. So this is a time for full ownership, full reckoning, full confrontation of the spaces and places within us that we are maybe not super proud of, and to bring loving awareness, recognition, and responsibility so that we can move beyond them, so that we aren't controlled by these beliefs. Where are you falling into the unhealed or less evolved aspects of Scorpio, which can be reactive, quick to sting, hidden, reclusive, protective over the ego? And where you're being invited into the Phoenix archetype, fierce, but also able to rise above the fight and see the wider perspective. Embracing the fire, the pressure, the confrontation, the difficulty. Where can you meet your inner warrior right now? It might be an uncomfortable week, but we have the resources and the tools to meet these parts of ourselves. I have a feeling that this week is much more about meeting our relationship with self and seeing that reflected in our relationships with others than it is about how we're relating to others. So you might feel this inner conflict being reflected in your relationships, but it's not really about the relationships themselves. We know that our relationship with self anchors and sets the foundation for our relationships with others. So this isn't coming from a narcissistic sort of obsession with self. This is coming from this need to have inner security in order to relate in a healthy way to other people. I'm seeing a lot on social media that it's like, the only relationship that matters is my relationship to self. And I wholeheartedly disagree. It is the foundational relationship and is essential in healthy relating. But we are connected beings. We need connection. We need relationship. We need community. This is about moving beyond that, even like egoic way of seeing healing work and relational work, and allowing ourselves to be healthy partners, healthy friends, healthy family members through transmuting and transforming the ego. So some practical tips for navigating this pressure cooker of a week. Creating space for yourself, knowing there will probably be activations that arise. Create some space between you and the activation. Notice, observe what's happening internally. Is there a trauma response happening? Is there an internal feeling? Is there an emotion coming forward? And take some time before you respond. We want to watch reactivity this week, that Scorpio sting. Also observing what you're doing and why. Are you fixed to a pattern or a belief or a way of doing something because it's what you've always done? And tend to the nervous system, tend to the physical body. Taurus is about embodiment. It's about the physical. Notice what you're putting in your body. Maybe it's a good week to do a cleanse from substances, just observing what we're using to cope. Maybe it's a good week to just eat really mindfully or take a break from social media. We need resources to navigate this week. So what are your resources? What really help what things really help you. Maybe it's taking magnesium at night. Maybe it's a daily walk. Maybe it's your meditation practice. Maybe it's calling a friend every day. Maybe it's going to your therapist or to your practitioners. Whatever those resources are, utilize them this week. Lean fully in. The more you resource yourself, the more you have capacity to be with the discomfort, to be with the activations, and to be with what arises. And I cannot make this up, but I pulled the Scorpion card from the Untamed Elemental deck, and it's all about passion. And it says, the priestess of harsh climes and mysteries of the night. Scorpion is an astrological jewel and an enchantress. Her biological brilliance is draped in self-resilience, self-reliance, and dangerous protective forces. As a potent guardian of the mythical and unordinary, she expresses ardor for her life as an enthusiastic lover, protective mother, and skilled hunter. By keeping the balance between solitude and lustiness, the sting of desire becomes eternally irresistible. Her passion transcends the sexual and enters the realm of holy creation. Scorpion medicine arrives when you need to recommit to your passion for earthly life. The soul evolves through her bodily experiences, which are adorned by many wholesome pleasures. It's time to embrace them. With her deadly defenses, Scorpion is not encumbered by a fear of passion. In fact, it is her attraction to intensity that keeps her safe. Call upon Scorpion when your own passion feels pale and allow her to guide you through the night toward the dawning of fresh enthusiasm for your human experience. When it's balanced, you have passion for life. When it's imbalanced, you feel timid, lackluster. To bring into balance, rekindle the meditative flames of your ancestral relationships and ask the ones who came before you for instruction, protection, and supervision. And on that note, I am sharing the winner of the giveaway, who is a very scorpionic woman, a shaman, and her name is Ren. Thank you again so much for every single amazing person who has written and shared and liked and reviewed, and just not even in the giveaway, but just over the last year and a half. Thank you. I adore all of you. Thank you for your presence, for being here. Thank you for your support as always. I just adore and cherish every single one of you that I get to come into contact with. So thank you. Let me know how this episode lands. As always, liking, sharing, reviewing helps me so much. Get over my little upgrade process that I'm in. Spotify is putting me through the meat grinder, but we're working through it. So thank you. Let me know how this week unfolds for you. I would love to hear. Happy Mother's Day to all of the beautiful mothers, human mothers, fur mothers, mothers in spirit, mothers of the earth, mothers of the collective. The mother archetype, I think, is the most powerful on this planet. So thank you for being you. And happy full moon.